Now, to be clear, I'm not being mean to these kids. I feel sorry for them. They're victims of brainwashing. They've obviously been coached on what to say by either their parents, Christina Wong, or both.
I'm going to show a picture. This is my way of figuring out if you've been tainted by the patriarchy.
Patriarchy? What? Oh, who's that?
Who do you think it is?
It's Harvey Weinstein, because inside every white man there's a serial rapist just fighting to get out, right? All these white rape gangs everywhere. It's an epidemic. But wait, it gets worse.
There's just like this thing about white people that just makes me be like, they're like right there in a pool, and I'm just like walking into the pool and they just give me the death stare and then I'm like,
What?
there's just like this thing about white people that just makes me be like...
What kind of parent would teach their child to be afraid of a person based on their skin colour? What kind of person could possibly do such a thing? Oh yeah, a racist. So in a class for teaching kids that racism is bad, you're actually teaching them to be racist. Genius.
It is Hello Kitty. What is she missing?
Imagine being such a pathetic fucking snowflake that you think Hello Kitty not having a mouth is some vast racist sexist conspiracy.
Her mouth. Why doesn't she have a mouth?
They didn't want Asian girls to speak up about their... to speak up.
Very profound.
Yeah, you obviously just told her to say that.
Very profound.
The person who designed Hello Kitty was an Asian woman. She explained why it was designed without a mouth years ago. And it's got nothing to do with silencing Asian women. Again, the designer is an Asian woman. I mean, Hello Kitty doesn't have feet either. Is that a racist throwback? Asian women having bound feet? Or is it just a harmless design feature and you're a hysterical moron? I'm guessing it's the latter.
Very profound. What do we know about him? What do we know about him?
He's bad.
Orange man bad. Orange man bad. Orange man bad.
Orange man bad.
Orange man bad.
Orange man.
How do we feel about this wall?
It is blocking opportunity for people that don't live in America to come here for a better opportunity.
And we all came at some point from some other place.
Yeah, so let me teach you something. If you don't have any borders and you allow everyone from some other place to come to America, it stops being like America and starts being like some other place. Meaning the opportunities afforded to all those who came legally disappear.
My dad came here and my mom came here too.
They came here from where?
Cambodia.
Oh, wow. What do you think they think that they came from all the way to Cambodia and this is what they get to look at on the TV screen all the time?
Right, because I'm sure they'd prefer to look at something else. Oh, I don't know, maybe the 23,000 mass graves containing the bodies of 1.3 million Cambodians who were all slaughtered as a result of a left-wing government genocide. Now that I think of it, Christina and Pol Pot have similar tastes in headwear. Oh yeah, and after Cambodia's communist regime got done killing a quarter of its own population, the United States accepted 158,000 Cambodian refugees. You know, because it's so racist and all.
What does gender fluid mean?
Like you can be any gender you want to be. You're not a boy, or like you're not just a boy, you're not just a girl.
Yeah. Does anybody know anyone who's gender non-binary? Elle?
I am gender fluid.
You're gender fluid.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, sounds more like child abuse to me.
I have a friend in the pool, and I was telling them that I wanted to be a little girl. And one of my friends said I can't because I was born as a girl and God made you as a girl.
What does a 6-year-old know about anything? Yet you're imposing sexuality and your warped ideas about gender on a 6-year-old. That's just creepy. Stop.
I have lived in America my whole life. This is a case of structural racism. Say it with me.
Structural racism.
Structural racism. So structural, it gives non-white people giant public corporate-sponsored media platforms to endlessly lecture white people about how evil they are.
When Donnie the Bully was calling Hannah Rochelle Ching Chong Chu or things like that, has anybody ever had that happen to them?
Well, Mike.
No, it didn't. So that kind of suggests that America is nowhere near as racist as you relentlessly claim it to be.
White women earn 75% of what white men earn.
Why do they get to earn more?
Because they work longer hours, and when that factor is eliminated, the gender wage gap virtually disappears.
That's what we would have to do to get a full cookie, is form a union.
No, you just have to work the same hours, because in most evil white Western countries, gender employment discrimination is illegal.
So what are the few things that fathers have to think about?
Also, they rest.
Resting, yeah.
I'm not calling Christina Wonga, but she did literally dress up as a vagina before proceeding to reel off politically correct statements.
Always ask what someone's preferred gender pronoun is.
And called it comedy. Yeah, really.
My Asian vagina does have the power to end racism. I could have sex with the entire state of Alabama now.
Weird flex, but okay. Believe it or not, according to Salon.com, that video was one of the funniest political comedy moments in 2014. I had funnier bowel movements in 2014. And again, Salon's #1 political comedy moment of 2014 was a stand-up show about white people in the United States becoming a minority because racism is so hilarious. Here's the point. This is just some crappy YouTube web series. Oof, look at that ratio. Comments disabled, the way some people being silenced was a bad, except when they're trying to criticise you. Imagine that. It's just a crappy YouTube web series. So schools and colleges across the West are already imposing elements of this on your kids. This is what they want. Your children brainwashed, indoctrinated, and turned into NPCs.
Orange Man. Bad.
Teaching hatred to fight hatred. Teaching racism to fight racism.
There's like this thing about white people that
Using kids as political weapons to amplify racist, regressive lies that foster more division and more bigotry. Yet another perfect illustration of why everyone should homeschool.
Surrender is not an option.
Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video. Let's just be honest. This whole thing was designed to fail from the very beginning. Theresa May never intended to dignify the referendum result. I warned that they were going to stab us all in the back from day one. Theresa May deliberately negotiated a crappy deal, knowing it would be rejected so as to create the pretext for cancelling Brexit. If you enter into a negotiation with no limits on the length to which you'll compromise, that's not a negotiation, that's a capitulation, that's surrender from the start. This has been one long process in managed surrender.
My right honourable friend, and she is unquestionably honourable, says that we would leave the customs union. Annex 2 says otherwise. My right honourable friend said that she would maintain the integrity of the United Kingdom. Old protocol says otherwise. My right honourable friend said that we would be out of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. Article 174 says otherwise. As what my right honourable friend says, and what my right honourable friend does no longer match. This is not Brexit. This is a failure of government policy. It needs to be rejected.
I mean, for God's sake, her chief negotiator, the guy cutting the deal, Ollie Robbins, was a staunch communist who defended Stalin. What did you expect? Now, Theresa May is threatening no Brexit whatsoever if her shit sandwich of a deal gets rejected, which it will. That was the plan all along. I knew this is what would happen because it's a tried and tested EU model. Give people the illusion of choice, the facsimile of democracy. Let them vote, but if their vote defies the EU, just sabotage the process, or make them vote again and again and again until you get the result you want. Citizens across the continent voted to reject the Maastricht Treaty, to reject the Nice Treaty, to reject the EU Constitution, to reject the Lisbon Treaty, to reject the Euro bailout. Every time the votes were ignored, emphasising the fundamentally anti-democratic nature of the European Union.
We are being asked to sign up to a deal that doesn't really give us Brexit, that portrays the greatest democratic exercise in this country. But I have to say, tonight, I'm feeling more optimistic. I'm seeing the voting. I think we're getting close to the end of the worst and most duplicitous Prime Minister in history. I and that'll give us a chance for fresh start.
This is also about punishing the UK to intimidate other European countries out of pursuing their own cause. This is nothing less than a complete and total betrayal of democracy. We didn't vote to sign up to everything under a different name and be the EU's bitch. We voted to leave the EU. This deal de facto keeps us in the EU. But with no say and no influence, it turns us into a slave state. And on top of that, we're handing over £39 billion for the privilege. We're the prostitutes in this exchange. We're the ones getting bent over and screwed. Yet we're paying them. This deal is so awful that we'd be better off staying in the EU. And that was the plan all along. Now they're going to push for a second referendum, which includes the option of cancelling Brexit. An option that will serve as a death sentence for the very notion of Great Britain as a democratic country. Having stuck in the knife, May and her globalist cabal are now twisting it by putting the country at risk of the chilling prospect of being ruled by Jeremy Corbyn, a terrorist sympathiser who thinks that Venezuela's socialist dystopia is a model for the world.
The choice is now clear. Stand up for the United Kingdom, the whole of the United Kingdom, the integrity of the United Kingdom, or we vote for a vassal state with the breakup of the United Kingdom. That's the choice.
Theresa May never represented the interests of the United Kingdom to begin with. So how on earth is she still in power? This is it. This is our last chance to appoint a leader whose loyalties lie with their country, not with a gaggle of odious technocrats in Brussels. This is the last chance for Britain to avoid disappearing down a hard left hellhole. This is the last chance for Britain to avoid a constitutional crisis. This is sovereignty on the chopping block. This is democracy hanging. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.
A doctored video clip.
Sarah Sanders tweeted a doctored video.
The White House press office also put out a doctored version of the video.
Doctored.
You are fake news. The taped video of Costa? What are you talking about? All that was, nobody manipulated it. Give me a break. See, that's just dishonest reporting. All that is a close-up. See, that is just dishonest reporting. I watched that. I heard that last night. They made it close up. They showed it close up. When you say doctor, you're a dishonest guy because it wasn't doctored. They gave a close-up view. That's not doctoring.
Feels pretty good when the President of the United States has your back. Doctoring, the act of making different in order to deceive, tamper with, falsify, or adulterate. Converting and processing a video isn't tampering or falsifying. That's not doctoring.
That's not doctoring.
This is doctoring.
They sped up Jim Acosta's hand movement to make it look more violent.
Yeah, here's the screenshot from the edit in Sony Vegas, proving it was not sped up. If it was sped up, there'd be wavy lines in the track. They're on. Because it wasn't sped up.
And you see, like, it sped up his hand.
Yeah, I sped up his hand so much that literally 2 minutes before you said that, you played a clip where his hand moved even quicker. But I sped it up, okay. New York Times. The video was sped up. BuzzFeed. There's no evidence that the video was deliberately sped up.
Give me a break.
Here's the comparison of the doctored video with the original. It looks virtually identical. Does anything here look like it was done to tamper, falsify, or adulterate? No, because it wasn't doctored.
That's not doctoring.
Elizabeth Loftus says the videos are, quote, totally different. Really? Watch the comparison again. Do these two videos look totally different to you? Or is Elizabeth Loftus a liar?
The part where he says, "Pardon me, ma'am," they cut the audio out.
Yeah, there's no audio in the entire clip, Jimmy, because the original was a GIF image. And GIF images don't have audio, because it's not a video file, it's an image file.
That's not doctoring.
Jim Acosta clearly never touched that White House intern. That's just a lie.
Yes, he did touch her. It's right there on tape. The tape that you literally just played.
You know, I didn't put my hands on her or touch her, as they're alleging.
Definition of touch: come into or be in contact with. Did Jim Acosta touch her?
I didn't put my hands on her or touch her. I didn't put my hands on her or touch her. I didn't put my hands on her or touch her.
But people watching Wednesday night's edition of Anderson Cooper wouldn't know whether Acosta touched her or not, because they didn't play the part where Acosta touched her. So I'm the one being accused of editing a video to mislead. Then CNN takes the very same video and edits out the part where he touches her. The only thing being doctored here is your narrative.
Jim Acosta clearly never touched that White House intern. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. To discredit a reputable journalist, she's the White House press secretary. She should be fired for that.
Yeah, you literally just lied to millions of people about the content of a videotape.
That's just a lie.
Now you're saying Sarah Sanders should be fired for lying about the content of a videotape, which she didn't. You should be fired. Remember, these are the same mouthpieces that spent weeks claiming Brett Kavanaugh assaulted a woman. Yet when there's clear evidence of Jim Acosta at least accosting a woman, they all suddenly develop temporary blindness.
Jim Acosta clearly never touched that White House intern.
That is terrible. Or it would be if it weren't fake news. The fact that the White House press secretary is promoting this doctored video is reprehensible.
Yeah, it's so doctored, Stephen. You literally played the same clip 2 minutes before saying this. Again, it's not doctored. It lost a couple of frames after conversion and compression. That's not doctoring.
That's not doctoring.
It's zoomed in and slowed down. Every single one of your lamestream fucking media firms at some point or another has aired a story where they've done this. That is not doctoring. It's not misrepresenting the fundamental content of the video. It's simply focusing on the important element of that video and slowing it down so people can get a better idea of what happened. That's not film doctoring.
What's this? First, Vice reports that it's a doctored video. Then they talk to 2 separate forensic experts who say it's not doctored. Forensic expert. There is no evidence the White House video of Jim Acosta was doctored. Hani Farid, who studies digital forensics, human perception, and image analysis at the University of California, Berkeley, told Motherboard, which is Vice, that he does not think the video was doctored, though he agreed that the entire video was, of course, slowed down and zoomed in to focus on the moment of physical contact. He does not see any evidence to suggest that it was selectively edited to exaggerate Acosta's motion. This again. It's not doctored.
That's not doctoring.
I can't speak to the origin of the video except to say I know where it started. It started right in that room over there when everyone saw it. It doesn't matter who puts it up, who posts it. It doesn't matter the speed at which the video is seen. It doesn't matter the angle. The question is, at the core of this, and this is why Jim Acosta lost his credential. Did he touch her or not? The video's clear he did.
He did. Donald Trump Jr. So are we just supposed to act like the media didn't completely make up and spread an insane conspiracy theory about the White House doctoring a tape? How's that disappear from the news so fast? We've truly entered some kind of delusional dystopia, when to distract from Acosta's behaviour, the media launches a giant hoax claiming, 1, that Acosta never touched her, when he clearly did, and 2, that a video which loses a couple of frames or has frames added because of compression, they can't even make their minds up which it is, means that it was a doctored video.
That's not doctoring.
It wasn't a doctored video. They call me a conspiracy theorist while themselves promulgating a monumental conspiracy theory. CNN, Washington Post, TechCrunch, Vox, New York Times, NBC, and hundreds of other publications, all breathlessly asserted, with zero fact-checking whatsoever, and none of them even reached out to me for comment, that I, the White House, or someone else had doctored a video that wasn't doctored, just so they could portray Trump as deceitful and rash for suspending Acosta's press access. The only deceitful and rash parties in this entire situation were you. You literally claimed Acosta never touched her, when it's right there on tape.
Jim Acosta clearly never touched that White House intern. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. That's just a lie. That's just a lie.
I didn't put my hands on her or touch her. I didn't put my hands on her or touch her. I didn't put my hands on her or touch her.
Why do you think your trust is plummeting? Why do you think people don't like you when this is what you're willing to stoop to time and time again? The tape wasn't doctored. The tape wasn't misleading. I didn't manipulate it. The only manipulation here was you lot lying to and manipulating your own audience. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. Click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video. CNN's Jim Acosta put his hands on a woman. The White House staffer was trying to do their job and retrieve the microphone after Acosta had gone on yet another anti-Trump rant. Acosta then used his left arm to push down on the woman and physically restrain her. This resulted in him getting his press access revoked. And who's to blame for all this? Me? Of course it's me. Question for PressSec. Where do you obtain the distorted Acosta video you posted? InfoWars personality Prison Planet posted the same video 2 hours before you did. Surely you don't trust InfoWars. The White House is circulating a doctored InfoWars video. White House uses doctored video to justify stripping CNN reporter Jim Acosta's press credentials. Sarah Huckabee Sanders used doctors InfoWars footage to justify Acosta ban. White House shares doctored video to support punishment of journalist Jim Acosta. White House press secretary shares fake InfoWars video to justify banning CNN reporter, and this is all complete horseshit. Look at the comparison between the original video and the one I posted. It isn't doctored, it isn't sped up, it isn't slowed down. All I did was zoom in. Look at it again. Is this an example of someone doctoring the clip to change its meaning? No. It's virtually identical. Is it 100% identical? No. Video compression is going to result in it looking marginally different. But does it show Acosta putting his hands on a woman to restrain her as she tries to grab the microphone? Yes. Inventing a giant conspiracy theory isn't going to change that fact. As you can see from the original editing track in Sony Vegas Pro, none of the individual tracks are sped up. A track that is sped up would show wavy lines in the original track field, which it doesn't. Now I know how James O'Keefe feels every time he exposes the left. They accuse him of doctoring footage. No, doctoring means deliberate manipulation to change the meaning of the video. Zooming in isn't doctoring. Oh, but some frames might be missing. Wait, this is the same media that demonized Corey Lewandowski for assault based on a video which had just 6 frames. So I downloaded a GIF, exported it to an M2T file, converted it to an MP4, then re-uploaded it to Twitter. Is the compression going to look exactly the same? No, it's going to look marginally different. Does that mean the video was doctored? No, that's not doctoring. As this video analyst commented, any changes, if they did make them, would be incredibly minor and possibly due to working across frame rates and compressions. As Tim Pool tweeted, all of the outlets claiming the video was doctored or sped up didn't even bother fact-checking. 2 different analyses showed it was likely just compression issues as to why it didn't sync. This is why people don't trust the media. They all ran the story due to gossip, not facts. I mean, when even BuzzFeed writers semi-come to my defense, you know the media's reaching. BuzzFeed, there's no evidence that the video was deliberately sped up. Thank you. Now will the hundreds of other media organizations that falsely claimed that issue retractions? Don't hold your breath. The original tweet circulating this fake news that I doctored the video combined have hundreds of thousands of retweets. The clarifications, the ones that debunked the whole thing, the number of retweets they got pales in comparison. The final irony is that while I'm constantly being accused of being a conspiracy theorist, despite loathing most conspiracy theories, the media invented a giant conspiracy theory to distract from a real controversy. They incited a Twitter witch hunt, which resulted in me receiving a bombardment of hate and violent threats. That's how the media rolls these days, and they wonder why people don't like them. Sarah Sanders was right. Jim Acosta put his hands on a woman. He used his strength to overpower her, and that's clearly seen in the video. Does that mean he assaulted her? No, it doesn't. But he clearly used his hand, his wrist, and his arm to push her away. Inventing baseless conspiracy theories about me doctoring the footage is just a convenient way to distract from Acosta's behaviour. Don't take my word for it. Go and watch the footage yourself and come to your own conclusions. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.
The angry white guy, which actually I'm really Trump's demographic.
Yeah.
I'm
You're a Michigan angry white guy.
I'm an angry white guy over 50 with a high school education. So that's me.
Yeah.
So if I could just speak to my fellow angry white American guys who are semi-uneducated like me.
Oh yeah, you're really a man of the people, aren't you, Michael? You can really reach out and connect with blue-collar, white, working-class Trump voters who are actually struggling. You can really sympathise with their plight.
I'm really Trump's demographic.
Give me a fucking break. Your net worth is $50 million. You own 9 fucking houses. You literally spent $2 million on an extension. You own a Manhattan condo that was once 3 apartments. Oh, but you really represent Trump's demographic.
I'm really Trump's demographic.
Your own neighbors say you don't even talk to them. You live like the very 1% you condemn, but then claim to have retained the common touch.
I'm really Trump's demographic.
Shut the fuck up. Listen, I don't care if you're a multi-millionaire. I'm glad we live in a society where someone who trashes capitalism for a living can get filthy rich from doing so. But for God's sake, save us the sanctimonious torture of you claiming to represent white working class people. And then in the next breath, welcoming the demographic decline of those very same people.
They are fanatical about this because they know their time is up.
Listen, wearing a baseball cap, refusing to visit a barbershop, and failing to maintain basic levels of personal hygiene isn't fooling anyone. You're not working class. You're a smug, conceited New York elitist who spends 99% of his time rubbing shoulders with other smug, conceited New York elitists, going on talk shows where literally every host holds the same pompous liberal establishment opinion, insisting that Trump voters are all angry, illiterate, uneducated rednecks who need to shut up and die out. The funny thing is that while you laugh it up at old white people dying off, one thing that's dying off even quicker. Your career, your anti-Trump diatribe Fahrenheit 11/9 was a total flop. It grossed 1/20th of the money you made from Fahrenheit 9/11. Guess that next $2 million extension will have to be put on hold. Your Broadway show was also a complete financial failure. Even left-wing publication Variety admits you've lost your audience. Why? Because you're a total sellout. You've become the epitome of the very thing you started out railing against. Your first movie was about American jobs being offshored because of globalist trade deals. Now we get a president who tries to roll back those very trade deals. You do everything in your power to tear him down. You're also a relentless hypocrite. You started off the 2016 election by calling Hillary Clinton a Goldman Sachs corporate warmonger.
I just heard on the streets of Belfast here that you supported Hillary Clinton.
So smart.
She voted for the Iraq War. She is funded by Goldman Sachs. This is not good. Now we have Hillary Clinton and you to blame for this.
Only to turn around months later and endorse it after the DNC screwed over Bernie Sanders.
But you should be out there doing what you could do to get Hillary Clinton elected, because every minute counts now. I mean, this is a pretty good person. She's a decent person. I believe that she has made incredible changes that the left should embrace, and we should get out there and get excited about her.
She voted for the Iraq War. She was funded by Goldman Sachs.
I mean, this is a pretty good person. She's a decent person.
So you literally made an entire movie about the evils of capitalism and the joys of socialism, only to stab the only actual socialist candidate in the back. You initially denounced Clinton as a danger to the world, then put on a stage show where you literally stand in front of romanticized photos of a young Hillary while calling her your forbidden love, while invoking the audience to engage in cult-like North Korean-style adulation in her honor. Oh, but at least you really support women, right?
Dudes, give it up. We've been running the show for 10,000 years. It's like we've had a long run as men running everything. So why don't we just take a break? Let the majority gender run the show.
So is Michael Moore really keen for women to take power because he's such a fantastic feminist? Or is he only saying that because there are more women running on the ballot as Democrats? Gee, I wonder, could we possibly ask to get the answer to this question? I know, let's ask Michael Moore.
There are so many women on the ballot.
Well, imagine my shock. Turns out there are nearly 4 times the number of women running as Democrats compared to Republicans.
There are so many women on the ballot.
That's why he wants women to take power. Not because he cares about women, because he cares about power. Remember when Samantha Bee called Ivanka Trump feckless?
Do something about your dad's immigration practices.
The backlash was so severe that even the normally unrepentant Bee was forced to apologize.
I crossed the line, I regret it, and I do apologize for that.
Guess what Michael Moore said about that? He called it brilliant. Yeah, he really loves women, but only if they're Democrats. Michael Moore loves women so much, he applauds when they're compared to genitalia. Such a good feminist. Michael Moore loves women so much, he palled around with serial rapist Harvey Weinstein for years, calling him, quote, one of the best people to work with in this town. Then when Weinstein was exposed, Moore went quiet for 8 straight days. When asked about it by the media, he refused to comment. Then when he finally did say something, he basically just blamed all white men. Funny that, isn't it, Michael, that while you were smearing Trump supporters as rapists...
If you hold down the woman while the rapist is raping her, and you didn't rape her, are you a rapist?
You were best buds with an actual rapist. Michael Moore loves women so much, he bought 9 properties, then threw his ex-wife under a bus for spending too much money.
So many women on the ballot.
Listen, when your entire relevancy is completely dependent on the very corporate media establishment you used to rage against, and your only real platform is the corporate media establishment, then as a fat, putrid, hypocritical sellout whose career is on the wane, what else are you gonna do but shill for that very same corporate media establishment? So listen, Michael, keep making your little movies and your stage shows, keep cashing in on that elitist, leftist arrogance, and keep being pimped out as a mouthpiece for the very system you once opposed. But please, just stop pretending to represent ordinary working class Americans, because you're so far away from them at this point, it's quite frankly shameful and embarrassing.
If the majority of the people had their say on Michael Moore, I think it would be shut the fuck up.
Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video. This week in Clown World, Kleenex have rebranded their man-sized tissues to something more gender-neutral to appease moaning feminists. Gingerbread men are now gingerbread people. And Apu is being axed from The Simpsons due to racial stereotyping. Not even cartoon characters are safe anymore.
Forget the Quickie Mart. Goodbye to Quickie Mart.
I know, I can't believe it either. The Simpsons is still being broadcast. Apu Nahashipitapitulon caused controversy amongst the perpetually offended amidst claims by one person. Harry Kondabaloo, who made The Problem with Apu in 2017, complains that Apu is a racist stereotype on a show comprised almost entirely of stereotypes. It's now possible that due to all the manufactured whining, Apu could be written out of the show altogether. So an alcoholic father who physically abuses his son, that's fine, but a hard-working immigrant who assimilates to his new country, that's offensive! Remove all stereotypes from The Simpsons, and what are you left with? A show full of NPCs, or in other words, a leftist utopia. In The Problem with Apu, Harry discusses the issue with how Western culture depicts Southeast Asian communities, because apparently being depicted as a family man who runs his own business and loves both countries is an issue.
Yes, I am a citizen. Now which way to the welfare office? What? I'm kidding, I work.
Apu has basically been fired because of his race. How ironic is that? When you're so woke, you deport a brown immigrant to fight racism.
What are you thinking?
Producer Adi Shankar claimed that The Simpsons are planning to drop Apu's character altogether and not even write him out. Just pretend he doesn't exist, because while racial stereotypes are not okay, racial erasure is. Even Poochie got given a better send-off than this. Literally no one in the history of humanity complained that Apu was a negative stereotype until Harry came along with his documentary-length whinge fest. Even The Guardian are on the side of reason. You know you've fucked up when The Guardian thinks your virtue signalling is excessive. The decision on what to do with Apu has still not been finalised. Simpsons executive producer Al Jean tweeted, Adi Shankar is not a producer on The Simpsons. I wish him the very best, but he does not speak for our show. So there might be some hope that The Simpsons have not bowed down to the organised outrage machine, except that Al has not confirmed or denied Apu's impending departure from the show. Writing a minority out of a show because they're problematic is peak 2018. Abandoning diversity to own the conservatards. What is it that the left are trying to prove? That there's no room for brown people who legally emigrated? That they want to turn Springfield into an all-yellow alt-right ethno-state?
Who needs the Quickie Mart? I do.
listen, I know we're all worried about a T-Series overtaking PewDiePie in subscribers. Lasagna! Getting rid of a poo isn't going to prevent that. SJW really won't stop until they've sucked the fun out of absolutely everything. But they're about 20 years too late with The Simpsons because it hasn't been funny since season 9 anyway. If The Simpsons are going to start cancelling characters because they're walking stereotypes, then the Bumblebee, Groundskeeper Willie, Luigi Risotto, Fat Tony, Captain McAllister, Chief Wiggum, Comic Book Guy, Kira and Cletus are all on borrowed time. Here's a sneak preview of The Simpsons season 50. Looks like a bag of laughs, but hang on. I'm white, so my opinion is irrelevant. What does the population of India have to say about this? I'm India and I disagree with this. We all know that this is just a self-perpetuating cycle of moaning and misery. If Apu and other stereotypes are removed from The Simpsons, the cult of outrage will just bitch about the lack of diversity that's left on the show. If you want a vision of the left's collective future, just imagine a snake eating its own tail forever.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you in hell.
Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.
I'm white. I'm a proud white person.
Okay then.
Most African Americans speak ghetto, but when it comes to black people, I think they're all ugly and I have nothing in common with them. I'm different from African Americans because I'm white.
Surely the solution is to arrange a fight to the death between her and Whoa Vicky.
I might look white, but down here, in here, I'm black.
I'm white.
I'm black.
I'm white.
I'm black.
I'm white.
I'm black.
I'm white.
I'm black.
I'm black.
I'm black. I'm black. I'm black. I'm black. I'm black. I'm black.
If African American is on the same street as I am, I'll cross the street to avoid their chaotic, thuggish ways.
This girl must get really clumsy in clothing stores, and God forbid the shitstorm of calamity that awaits her when she visits the Hall of Mirrors.
My figure is just like Kim Kardashian, and she's a wonderful role model.
What?
My figure is just like Kim Kardashian.
This is Kim Kardashian's figure, and this is yours. It's almost like saying this chick has the same figure as Tess Holiday.
She says things like they should be in cages with monkeys, so her views are extreme, to say the least.
Yeah, that reaction looked like a bit of an overcompensation to me. Closet racist.
I just know that I'm white. I mean, she might not know that I'm white, but I know that I'm white. I can feel it through my veins, I feel it through my blood.
But why is everyone hating on her? A gold-medaled male Olympic athlete can identify as a demure woman. Rachel Dolezal can grow up looking like the Milky Bar Kid, but identify as African-American.
Identify as black.
Glam Roo can identify as a non-binary gay Muslim drag queen.
I'm British Iraqi, gay, non-binary, also identify as Muslim.
This individual can identify as the extraterrestrial from the alien autopsy video, and Dr. Phil can identify as a real psychologist. So who says this girl can't identify as Caucasian?
I'm white.
I'm interested in doing this story because I think it's a teachable moment, not for sensationalistic shock value.
Right, because none of this is for sensationalistic value. I mean, it's not like this is the same show that featured the girl who said she was pregnant with the baby Jesus.
I am pregnant! And it is Jesus.
And that her father was Eminem.
Did you tell people that Eminem is your father?
Yes, I did, actually.
It's not like this is the same show that launched the biggest sensationalist cancer of the century.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Not for sensationalistic shock value.
And it is Jesus.
If you want to identify with the Caucasian group, of which I'm a member, you are not welcome.
Dr. Phil joins the alt-right. What's with all these judgmental white people condemning a black person's right to choose their race? Bigots, stand up if you support the ethno-state. Jesus wept.
They're just quiet about it, that's it.
White power.
So, and I just find that, and
I tell my mom, I'll never be like any of those Negroes.
Go suck a dick, bitch.
African Americans are more known to actually commit crimes than Caucasian people. And they're just like really ghetto. It's like completely disgusting how ghetto they are. Like honestly.
You gotta be some type of retarded. And I'm not that.
Yeah, you've got the KKK on speed dial.
I've had the KKK's number since I was like in middle school.
The white supremacist group that tried to recruit new members in a nearly all-black town. Not the brightest.
Using that word
retarded
is very derogatory, so I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't use that word.
Right, so she's literally been spewing the N-word for the whole show, but that's the one you pick her up on.
I know I'm a Caucasian because when I wake up in the morning, I just have such a great life.
Time to check that white privilege.
You need some help big time.
Stop it. Get some help. Has she ever been to a KKK event?
No, but I'm sure it's her dream. She'd like a Make America Great hat if you guys could get her one.
Right, because anyone who wears a MAGA hat must be a white supremacist, right? Oh, and going back to that whole thing about sensationalism.
Not for sensationalistic shock value.
Turns out the whole thing was made up so the family could get a free trip to LA. The girl is actually a Black Lives Matter supporter, and while posing for the entire show as a victim of the whole thing, the mother was complicit all along. And who could have known with such stellar acting skills as this?
Silverback gorilla, fantastic.
I said black people are pigs.
Also, these bizarre-looking social media posts are obviously fake mock-ups. Now the girl's 25-year-old sister is blaming Dr. Phil and the show for exploiting the whole farce. And she's reported her 16-year-old sister to Child Protective Services. Welcome once again to the smouldering dystopia of 2018.
White power.
Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video. Populist candidate Jair Bolsonaro beat the leftist candidate in the first round of voting in the Brazilian elections. The second and final round takes place this weekend. And to discuss it, I was delighted to be joined by Felipe G. Martins. He's a political analyst specialized in forecasting and a professor of international politics. He's worked at the US Embassy in Brazil, and he is the director of international affairs of PSL, which is Bolsonaro's party. First, I asked Felipe to explain how the political and economic situation in Brazil over the last 10 years helped fuel the rise of a populist candidate like Bolsonaro.
Yes, we should go way back than 10 years ago, but I know we have a little bit of time. So going back 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, all we had was the left. So we didn't have any conservative movement in Brazil. We didn't have any right-wing party in Brazil. We didn't have any right-wing politician in Brazil. We had Bolsonaro, we had some other guys, but they didn't have a clear identity. And that's due to the military dictatorship. So the left used the dictatorship to shame the conservatives, to shame the political right wing in Brazil. And for decades and decades, all we had was a contest between leftists. We had PT, Partido dos Trabalhadores, the Workers' Party, and in the other case, PSDB. PSDB stands for Social Democrats. But both of them used to act on the culture, on media, to advance the diversity, the progressive agenda. So we didn't have any representation of the Brazilian right wing. And in the same time, we had a very, very conservative population. So our population is still very Catholic and Christian. We have a people that are against abortion, against gay marriage, against socialism, but they didn't have any representation. And in the same time, we had a lot of corruption. So the political class here in Brazil and the entire establishment, the media establishment, the academia, editorialship, they all are leftist and very corrupt. So for a long time, we didn't have any voice. And when we had the internet, so we start to work on critics and start to work on means of fighting the left. And here we have to mention a guy that was key for what's going on right now in Brazil. That's Olavo de Carvalho. Olavo de Carvalho is a professor, a philosopher of thousands and thousands of Brazilians. And he we can say he is the father of the Brazilian conservative movement. So before Olavo, we didn't have anything like a right wing. Even Bolsonaro and his children say they came after Olavo and they backed Olavo's ideas. And that's why we are now having always enthusiastic about your work and the work some other guys do in the US and in Great Britain and also in Europe. So we have a lot of demand for change and also for a creation of a conservative party that's now underway. PSL, the party director of international relations, and also the party of Bolsonaro, has elected 52 deputados, 52 congressmen. And before that, in the last election, we only had one. So we went from one deputado, one congressman, to 52. And that's a big party of the story that's going on right now in Brazil.
Now, the Western media portrayal of Bolsonaro is of this horrendous right-wing military figure who hates women and gay people. In fact, there was a big article in The Guardian on Thursday by Noam Chomsky and other intellectuals saying that Bolsonaro threatens the world, not just Brazil's fledgling democracy. They even claim his supporters were behind 70 violent attacks after the first round of voting. Just how far removed is the Western media portrayal of Bolsonaro from reality?
Well, I would say it's as far from reality as it can be. Bolsonaro is none of those things the corrupt media and the establishment media has been calling him. He's not a dictator, he's not an authoritarian figure, he's not a homophobe, he's not a bigot, he's none of those things. So I would say he's indeed a threat, but not a threat to democracy. As you know, he had an attempt of assassination. He suffered an attempt of assassination, an attempt on his life perpetrated by a left-wing activist on the eve of Brazil's Independence Day. I believe has signaled that the crime syndicate that has been running the country is in panic mode. So he's a threat to the crime syndicate. And his popularity, as you might have been seeing, his being received in airports by huge crowds. Every time he goes on the streets, he's also received by huge crowds. Everywhere he goes, he's followed by a huge crowd. And that's due to his fight on crime, his fight against crime. His stance is to fight crime along its whole spectrum, from everyday crimes such as street robbery and rape, organized crime, which here in Brazil includes drug trafficking with all its linkings to terror networks and other criminal organizations worldwide. So here we have PCC, Primeiro Comando da Capital. It's like the first command of the capital, the first command of São Paulo, it will be. So it's a very organized crime organization that has links to Hezbollah, Hamas, and a lot of Islamic terrorist groups. And Bolsonaro has promised to face PCC and also CV, Comando Vermelho, the Red Command. So the Red Command, the name gives an idea on the ideological stance of those criminal organizations. They are linked to PT, they are linked to Hezbollah, they are linked to crime worldwide, and that's why the media has saying Bolsonaro is a threat. He's not a threat to democracy, he's not a threat to minorities, he's a threat to organized crime, to the crime scene.
Then we have this absolutely staggering statistic: 63,880 people murdered in 2017 alone in Brazil. Bolsonaro's promised to deal with this. He's been called an authoritarian. He's been accused of introducing a police state or wanting to, at least, to handle this. Is this massive spike in murders a more recent phenomenon, or has it been a problem in Brazil for a lot longer than that?
No, so if you get the statistics, you'll see the murder rate is getting higher and higher alongside with PT's rise to the power. So you have to see that it was a systematical view from the left that criminals should not be punished. So they used the judicial system, they used also the politicians to protect crime. That comes from the links that PT has with the FARC. Are you familiar with the FARC in Colombia? So PT founded Foro de São Paulo, It's São Paulo's Forum. It's an organization created, in the words of Lula, our former president, to build in Brazil what was lost in Brazil and Latin America, to build in Latin America what was lost in Eastern Europe. So it was built between 1991, 1992, and the idea was we need to rescue communism from what was left in the Eastern Europe. So the idea was to connect all the organizations, be it parties or even criminal organizations in Latin America that was aligned with communism ideology. So it was put forward by Lula, by Fidel Castro, by Hugo Chavez, and a lot of fellas here in Latin America that had the same idea to build here a huge country that would unite Venezuela, Brazil, Cuba, all those countries, putting forward a communist ideology, a socialist ideology, to, in the end, go after the U.S. and defeat the U.S. So it was Lula's dreams, Fidel Castro's dreams, and also Hugo Chavez's dreams. And with this link to the FARC and other criminal organizations, they they built a system to protect criminals here in Brazil. And so they got to power, and criminal murder rate, also rape, robbery, they just exploded. That's part of why Bolsonaro is so strong and so popular here in Brazil.
Now that's interesting that you mentioned the rape rate exploding and Bolsonaro having a plan to deal with that. Because of course he's portrayed in the Western media as this gross misogynist, this woman hater. In fact, there was a comment called a congresswoman in 2014, I wouldn't rape you because you're not worthy of it, that was his comment. But then again, 42% of women intend to vote for him. So how do we explain this supposed portrayal of Bolsonaro as this gross misogynist when he has relatively large female support still?
So starting by the declaration that he would not rape that woman because she didn't deserve it, they were actually arguing she was protecting a guy that just had raped a girl, like an entire week. The guy spent raping the girl, and then he cut her head off. And Bolsonaro was saying that guy should go to jail, and the other congressman was saying no, he doesn't need to go to jail. He's just a kid. He didn't know what he was doing. The guy was 17, if I'm not mistaken. And then Bolsonaro was arguing with her, and then she called him a raper. And then he said, no, I'm not a raper, and if I was a raper, I would not rape you because you don't deserve it.
Now that's an absolutely fascinating example of how the Western media completely strips out the context, because all we've seen in the Western media is this quote on its own with zero context. I wouldn't rape you because you're not worthy of it. They don't tell you the backstory, which you just explained, that he's literally wanting to prosecute a rapist. He's responding to an insult, the congresswoman calling him a rapist, which is a far worse insult. None of that context ever appears in the Western media when they use this quote to smear Bolsonaro as this evil, woman-hating misogynist. That's just an absolutely fascinating example of how much they hide, how they strip out context, how they strip out meaning to demonize people for these kind of comments. And on that subject of comments that may be being taken out of context, there's another one about minorities, which is apparently Bolsonaro said, quote, minorities have to bend down to the majority. Minorities should either adapt or simply vanish. He was talking about indigenous lands in the Amazon rainforest, and this is another big controversy or criticism of Bolsonaro that apparently, and Time magazine reported on this recently as well, he wants his business associations to pave a highway through the Amazon rainforest. How accurate is that criticism?
Yeah, so when he talks about minorities, he's not saying he will, that code is very strong too. The minorities have to bend down to the majorities, but what he's saying actually also has a context. So when he say that, he say there's a basic point that no minority has a strength in its own. All its strengths come from the dominant class. What he was saying is diversity paradise is the absolute and unstoppable power of the dominant class and the perfect tyranny. What he was saying basically was the minorities here in Brazil only have power when they are backed by billionaires such as George Soros, such as some of our own billionaires here in Brazil, also by the establishment media. And what he was saying was our conservative values, the Brazilian values, needed to be respected. They need to be they need to have a place in public debate, because as I was telling you earlier, there's no place for conservatives in establishment media. It's not even like in the US where you have Fox News and other channels. We don't have any channel here that gives space to conservatives such as myself, such as Olavo de Carvalho, such as Bolsonaro. We have to go to the internet, the social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We don't have any space on establishment media. So what he was saying was, we need to respect the values of the majority. We have 91% of the Brazilians are Christians, and you don't have any Christians in the media, in the academia, and any of those establishment powerhouses. So what he was saying basically was, we are going to respect the minorities, we are going to protect the minorities, protecting them from violence, from crime, but we need to respect the values of the majority. That was the basic point he was making there.
Now, Brazil, obviously being a Catholic country, basically outlaws abortion. It's still allowed in cases of rape or whether there's a risk to the life of a mother. But recently the Supreme Court said they would consider allowing elective abortions up to 12 weeks of pregnancy. What's Bolsonaro's position on abortion?
Bolsonaro, as the entire population of Brazil, is very against abortion. So we have like 95% of Brazilians are against abortion, but the progressives try to push it with a lot of Soros money. We have a big pro-life movement here in Brazil, linked to Catholics, linked also to evangelicals. But not only evangelicals and Catholics are worried about abortion here in Brazil. We have a lot of atheists, we have a lot of people that are not even doesn't even have a religion, and that are worried about abortion here in Brazil. Soros has been putting a lot of money here in Brazil, not only to push abortion, but also to push, as we call here, the gender ideology, the gender theory, pushing that on schools, pushing that on universities, pushing that on media. And we are reacting to that. That even led George Soros himself to complain about Brazil. He said, "Oh, I'm not sure what's going on in Brazil, but people there are making dangerous movements, as he called it, because he didn't make any success in pushing abortion, pushing the gender ideology, and he even complained about that. So we have some of our judges from the Supreme Court that are very linked to Soros, and they were put there just to push abortion. So they are trying to use judicial activism to approve abortion here in Brazil, to make it right for women to abort, but no one wants that here in Brazil. So we could say it's more of a globalist agenda than a Brazilian progressive agenda.
Now, there's this other big controversy in Brazil, which I've read about, which is sex education for children. Obviously, I'm of the opinion children shouldn't be having any sex education, at least until the age of, 12, 13, 14. Reports that children as young as 3 and 4 have been given or taught propaganda about alternative sexual lifestyles. Tell us about this controversy. That's pretty low.
Yeah, so the perversion and the dumbing down of our kids is a big topic here in Brazil. Not only the perversion, the sexual education to children like 3 years old kids, 4-year-old kids, receiving in school what we got nicknamed here as gay kids. Bolsonaro was also very known when he was fighting the kit gay, how it goes here. It was actually a set of movies that targeted children as young as 3 years old, 4 years old, and try to teach them that gay sex was okay, but not only saying that, oh, you should respect it, you should do it. So they have like cartoons showing kids how to do gay sex and things like that. So it was a big problem here. The language they used were targeted at those ages. So it was a big scandal here in Brazil. Fathers, parents went to the streets. Bolsonaro went to the Congress and made a lot of speeches, and then they canceled it, but they still push it, like hiding a lot of teachers that are aligned with the PT crowd. They take that to the classroom, and Bolsonaro has been denouncing that since forever. But it's not only the sexual education; it's also the gender education. So they try to push the idea that kids are not born women or men. They are not born male or female. They have to choose that when they reach a certain age, like 18 years old, 20 years old. So that's another big fight we have, and also the dumbing down of our kids. If you get the statistics, we are not only killing our people. You got there, the murder rate is like 70,000 in the last year, but also we are dumbing down people. We are dumbing down our people because if you get like the PISA test, that test our capacity to read, to write, to do basic operations in mathematics, we are like in the last group. So like with countries that are much more poor than we are, and that's a big problem here too. And Bolsonaro is promising to fight that too. That's one other motive why he is also very popular here in Brazil.
Now, expanding this out into the wider conservative movement in Brazil, BuzzFeed, of all people, not a right-wing organisation by any stretch of the imagination, had an article this week entitled "YouTubers Will Enter Politics, and the ones who do are probably going to win." I went on these channels of some of these YouTubers. They built up massive audiences, in one case over 2 million subscribers. Some of them have actually now moved into positions of power. This is the MBL movement and a guy called Arthur Mame Fale. They've had such massive success based off of social media and YouTube. Tell us how that happened.
Okay, so that has to do with the history of the conservative movement here in Brazil. As I told you, Olavo de Carvalho was the first one to create a conservative identity for Brazilian conservatives. He was not only coping, he was not only mimetizing American conservatives, British conservatives. He was creating his studies, his ideas, and spreading these ideas among young people. A lot of them went to YouTube. A lot of them went to the streets. And MBL got in the story right there. So in 2014, we had a huge electoral fight between PT and the opposition. And the PT used a lot of dirt money, crime money. And when the elections were over, people got to the streets and started protesting, asking for Dilma Rousseff's impeachment. And one of the movements that was created there was MBL, that is liberal Brazilian movement. So liberal here doesn't have the same meaning as the US, so we are talking about classical liberals. They are classical liberals. They defend free market economics. They defend the ideas of Milton Friedman and also other economists such as Mises. And MBL got in the story right there. In 2014, they created a big movement alongside with other movements such as Vem Pra Rua, Revoltados Online, and a lot of other movements that asked for Dilma's impeachment. And she got impeached like in 2016. So MBL used YouTube and social media to channel its message. And two guys, Mamãe Falei, that is like mother, I'll tell them, that's what that means. And Kim Kataguiri got elected. They had a big vote. And I believe they are part of this larger movement. They are not part of PSL, they are not part of Bolsonaro's party, but now in the second round they are throwing all their support behind them. But I wouldn't say they are the main characters here. Bolsonaro is surely the largest character. All his supporters, like 52 of them, got elected. Even joked that Olavo de Carvalho has been doing a lot of Google Hangouts with some of these candidates, and each one of these candidates that has done a Google Hangout with Olavo de Carvalho got elected. So YouTube and social media was a big part of what's happening here.
Now, another issue impacting the Brazilian election is obviously the social media censorship. And Bolsonaro an absolutely huge army on social media, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, where they're very popular in spreading their message. I call it election meddling when these big social media giants, these big corporations, ban and censor people under the justification of preventing election meddling. They're the ones actually doing it by banning these influential people. Tell us about the problems you've had that the Bolsonaro campaign has had over this recent few weeks with social media censorship.
So from time to time, we get our accounts blocked in Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, even Bolsonaro's children themselves. One of them is a senator, and he got his WhatsApp blocked. He also got his Twitter blocked. Olavo de Carvalho got his Facebook blocked by like 30 days, running on the elections. So it was a big platform for his ideas, a big platform for the defense of Bolsonaro's platform, and he was just blocked. And then we complained, we went to the streets, and Facebook said, no, we can't do anything. He's spreading fake news, and they didn't have any evidence on that, any proof that he had shared fake news. He doesn't share fake news. But, they blocked him. They blocked Bolsonaro's children. They blocked myself, Twitter, a lot of other accounts. So the censorship we are facing is huge because, as I explained to you earlier, we don't have any space in traditional media, in establishment media, and we put all our ideas and all our time and work in social media. Social media like Facebook, Twitter, and also YouTube has been trying to block us in every single way. So I would say if we had any meddling, it would be from those five companies, the big tech that are blocking Bolsonaro supporters.
Now, of course, Bolsonaro's in prime position to win this election in the final round of voting on Sunday. What do the latest polls say about his chances? Then, how does this bode for the wider populist movement in terms of it expanding across South America and also globally?
Sure. The polls are great. Even in the first round, Bolsonaro has said he would have won if it was not for the fraud in the digital polls. So we have a very problematic system here in Brazil. I used to work for the electoral court, so I'm very familiar with the process. It's not transparent at all. The Brazilian population doesn't trust those polls, and Bolsonaro has said, "Oh, if there wasn't any kind of meddling, any kind of fraud, I would have won in the first one." And we believe it's true because we have a lot of videos and other proofs that there was at some extent some fraud. For the second round, Bolsonaro is clear the favorite. He has something like 6% against 4% of Fernando Haddad, his contender. And I believe he will win. In 2016, I wrote a piece saying the second round would be between Bolsonaro and Fernando Haddad. And people say, no, Bolsonaro won't be there. He doesn't have money, and he doesn't have money. He doesn't have a party, and he indeed doesn't have a party. He doesn't have any kind of political support, and indeed he doesn't have any kind of political support, but he still got to the second round as the big winner in the first round, and now he's in the way of winning the elections here in Brazil. About the populist movement, I would say that in Brazil, people have a problem with the populist term. Here in Brazil, populism is linked with the left. more like the demagoguery, the lies the left tells to people. But I get it. So the populist movement in Brazil, in South America, and also in Europe, and I'd say in the United States, people are looking for Bolsonaro. So we get a lot of message from people from the Lega Nord in Italy. We get message from the Kurz crowd in Austria. We also get message from people from UKIP, the Republican Party, the Trump movement. And here in South America, people see Brazil as a huge leader, a regional leader. So people from Paraguay, Argentina are expecting Bolsonaro to win so we can face Venezuela, so we can face the globalists, so we can defend our national sovereignty. I would say that Brazil will try to link the South America populist movement with the American populist movement. We are trying to connect with Trump and his people. We have had meetings with Bannon and people from Breitbart. We also have had meetings with people from the Lega Nord, from Kurz and other populist movements around the world. So I believe Brazil will be a large part of what's going on in the world right now, and Bolsonaro will have a special place in the history we are writing against globalists.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. I mean, just to finish, there's so much enthusiasm. I've never seen so much enthusiasm out of a people, out of one particular country, than I have with Brazil. Just the sheer volume of messages across every single platform, the sheer volume of enthusiasm that pours out of that country, you know, yearning for genuine change, and it looks like that's what's going to happen. For better or worse, depending on your standpoint, when Bolsonaro takes victory in this Sunday's election.
Thank you, Paul. I believe this will be a big success in your channel. As you said, people in Brazil are very enthusiastic, and I would say that comes from our need more than any national character or anything like that. We are happy people, but we are also in need of change here in Brazil. We need to build a conservative movement. We need to build an establishment movement. We also need to build an un-globalist movement, and that's going on right now. It's very exciting. So thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to me. I believe this link between populist movements in Brazil, in the Great Britain, and the entire world is very important in this moment. So thank you for having me and listening to me.
So taken, capture B, so lost.
All political violence is horrendous. And unlike some on the left who have either ignored or advocated far-left Antifa violence, I denounce all political violence. And yes, far-right extremism and far-right violence exists, and it's a problem. And yes, it could very well turn out to be that the mail bomber is in fact a MAGA bomber, a Trump supporter trying to exact political revenge against Trump's perceived enemies. But to simply ask questions about a major news event that could have a massive impact on elections that are less than 3 weeks away isn't to engage in conspiracy theories until investigators nail down for certain the identity and the motive of the bomber. Everything is a theory. So here are a few questions. Why would a Trump supporter engage in a campaign of domestic terrorism that could